European Vice President Frans Timmermans, who is very much known to our international investors and our Bloomberg viewers because of the Green Deal. He has very much become the face of the new green push for Europe. And Vice President, we're happy to have you today, and we're having you on the day prior to a very key, very important European Council. We have said repeatedly that the European Union is pushing to cut down emissions to 55%. Are you convinced, are you sure that every member state is going to approve this tomorrow when they meet here in Brussels?
I'm optimistic. We've been working very hard with all member states over the last couple of months, and positions are becoming closer to the proposal we've made. And I think we can reach an agreement tomorrow. I think it's still possible.
Including Poland and Hungary?
Including Poland and Hungary. Of course, it all hinges on the other discussion that's going on about the multi-annual financial framework and the recovery package. But I'm quite sure that if we can find a conclusion on those two issues, that the issue of the emissions target for 2030 will also be within reach of a positive conclusion.
So you're optimistic that we could get almost a dual agreement on the two fronts, the budget and the targets?
Well, I think there are two issues that are essential right now. First of all, we have to make sure we have the money to invest in our society so that people don't lose their jobs and that companies don't go bust. There's a real risk if Europe doesn't have a budget, and if we don't have money for the recovery, that this could happen. So that is our top priority. But when we have the money to invest, we have to make sure we invest it in a sustainable economy. And for that, we need our minus 55 target for 2030. So the two issues are completely interlinked.
And I have to ask you in a bigger picture now, if you look at the global climate conversation, there is a significant date coming up, and that is December 12th, the Paris Climate Agreement. The European Union, of course, is very much a supporter of this, but what changes this time around is that we have President Joe Biden joining now and bringing back the United States to the table. So I wonder, how is that going to change the political calculus when it comes to climate? And do you foresee a bigger contribution from the European side?
Well, I see the whole world moving in this direction. Of course, President-elect Biden has committed the United States again to the Paris agreements, which is wonderful news. But also China is committing to being carbon neutral by 2060. Japan, climate neutral 2050, South Korea along the same path, South Africa. So the world is turning a corner here and moving in the right direction, and which is good news, because it's nice to be leaders as Europeans, but if nobody follows, our leadership will fall short of achieving what we want, because Europe is only responsible for 9% of global emissions.
And if financial contributions, if putting more money on the table, if that's what it takes, do you foresee a situation in which the European Union would be happy to deploy more money into this?
Well, I think we have to have a very, very sound conversation about this, a very profound one, because if we want to convince, especially industrializing countries, to be part of this movement, we have to show to them that we mean business when we say that we're going to help them with the adaptation to climate change and with the mitigation of the climate change consequences. And those countries are waiting for concrete commitments. The deadline we have, of course, is the next COP meeting in Glasgow in November next year. But before then, I think the industrialized world is under an obligation to show very clearly that we're willing to put the money on the table to make sure that also the industrializing world can be part of this agreement.
Okay, even if that means that at one point doing or putting more money on the table, it requires a bigger conversation. That's how I understand it, essentially.
Well, yeah, but I think if we've made so many commitments in the past, and now we have to really show that we meant it, and that we have the money and that we have the means to support countries that need to adapt. We have nations that could disappear if we don't act quickly. Apart from the fact that most nations are faced with droughts, with wildfires, with storms, with completely unpredictable seasons. We have so much work to do, and those of us who have more capacity should put that capacity at the disposal of the whole of humanity and not just keep it for themselves.
Right, and I have a very final question that will sum up what is potentially now the biggest headache in Europe, and it's Brexit and it's the UK. First of all, how worried are you that we head into a no-deal Brexit on the trade front? But then two, do you worry perhaps that you're going to be undercut, that you have a big competitor now on the Green Deal, on green bonds, on the green emissions that could do better than Europe?
Well, on your first question, I truly hope that an agreement can be found, because even with an agreement, it's going to be very painful and difficult. But with a hard Brexit, it's going to be really painful, especially if people losing their jobs is the last thing we need right now. So I truly hope an agreement is still possible. But of course, not at any price. There are limits to what the European Union can do. On your second question, if we enter into a competition with UK on who is the greenest, everybody wins. If we try and outperform the other, it's only positive. Everybody wins because, I believe that the race to becoming climate neutral is a race that can only have winners. The ones who lose are the ones who are not part of the race.
But you don't fear that investors are perhaps going to favor their assets, not the European ones.
Absolutely not, because I believe the course we've set in the European Union is a course that is both extremely ambitious, but also feasible. So that combination is, I think, what investors will like.
Well, Vice President, thank you so much for joining us on Bloomberg Television. A pleasure to see you.